Welcome, everyone, to the Insurance Perspectives podcast. This is part one of our series on AgencyZoom. On today's show, we have Brad Bolt.
Hey, Kenny, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Really appreciate you being here. And Sid Roe.
Hey, all, equally excited to be here.
Great to have you. Brad will receive his full introduction in part two. As a sneak peek that I like to give, Brad is president of AmeriGuard Insurance Agency out of Blaine, Minnesota, with over 25 years of experience in the insurance industry. Brad is also the host of the Agent to Owner podcast, but we'll talk about that more in part two because it's important. Our focus in part one is AgencyZoom and Sid Roe, the director of agency marketing at Vertafore. Sid has elevated the game of engaging independent agents. I first encountered her work during Sid's tenure as the chief marketing officer at Atomic, a great partner of HawkSoft and a really strong insurtech startup. You would release videos and I would share them around internally all the time, being like, this is what we need to be doing. This is the type of engagement that agents are gravitating towards. I don't think I ever rang the bell on YouTube, but I probably should have as frequently as I check just for new content. Sid's career in insurance actually goes back way further than that, and arguably started probably informally since you were a baby, would be my guess. Because your family has had an agency in Florida since the 60s, if I did my research right.
Wow, yes. Yep, you nailed it. My grandfather started it.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you worked there doing commercial lines in college before you moved on to more the PR and marketing side of insurance organizations like the Big I and Trusted Choice. In 2022, you got called up to the major leagues, if I can be so bold, and became Vertafore's director of agency marketing. At Vertafore, you have brought your talents for reaching agents to where they're at, and you host Vertafore's insurance podcast, which is always a great listen. I'm not afraid to say that. You definitely deserve a pretty significant amount of gratitude for inspiring the quality that we aim for here at our podcast. So that's one of the many reasons I'm grateful that you are joining us today to talk about AgencyZoom.
I really appreciate it, Kenny. And the respect is mutual. The feelings are mutual. I'm excited to see that you guys have started a podcast. I have no doubt that you'll surpass me very quickly in that realm. So glad
Oh
to
no,
be here and excited to dig into AgencyZoom.
absolutely. Thank you so much. And so with that, we want to turn our attention to a pretty key piece of Vertafore's offerings for independent agents, and that is the AgencyZoom platform. So to set the stage, before we jump into our 5 partner questions, I'd love for you to give us the elevator pitch for AgencyZoom. Like what is AgencyZoom? Why would an agency bring it into their tech stack?
Well, if I think about an insurance agency, that there is a sense that when you walk into one agency, you walk into one agency. Everybody has their model, their way of doing things. But there has to be some consistency within that model, right? It's tough when every person in the agency is doing something a little differently, doing it their own way. Salesperson is doing the commercial line salesperson has their process, the personal line salesperson has their process. Maybe there's multiple salespeople. Same thing on the service side. Susie, Bob, Jill, Joe, everybody is working, but working somewhat differently. It's hard to understand from a business owner perspective where your inefficiencies are, where your training opportunities are. It's also hard to understand. Think of a double-sided coin. That's heads. Tails is the experience you're giving the customer. Every action that we take, the customer is going to feel in the immediate or at some point in the future. And if we're all doing things a little differently, How do we really know what's working and what's not working at the experience level? What AgencyZoom does is it brings light to your processes by getting them out of the dusty, trusty white binder and into a digital format where we can actually visualize it and
Mm.
see what's going on. From there, once you see it, you can optimize it. You can say, you know what,
Mm-hmm.
from a business perspective, I can achieve operational excellence by creating some automation in these three steps, by reminding my salespeople to make a call, by showing them their next best cross sell opportunity. On the service side, same thing, right? So that's the beauty behind AgencyZoom. A lot of people get scared because they think, oh, automation, and I'm going to have to fit everybody into this box, and no one's going to want to use it. And the beauty of it is that it really focuses the team on the best process, the most optimal steps that you should take as a salesperson to ensure that you close that deal, and as a service person to make sure you give a great experience.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I really appreciate how that explanation really, you need to understand the value of something before you understand the steps. And I really appreciate how that really put forward the value of why you would implement a platform as feature rich and powerful as AgencyZoom. I want to zoom back slightly as we dive into the first of our partner questions. Um, a company's story and an individual story is very important to how um, an agency or just even a consumer will attach themselves to a particular brand or a particular product. We see that with HawkSoft a lot, and we like to start with the story of the partner. And so
Mhm.
this is this is going to be a bit more complex than our normal one because it's almost a double level question because Vertafore is a very well known brand within the insurance technology space. AgencyZoom is as well. I'd love to know, and you can approach from either side, the Vertafore side or the AgencyZoom side. Why does your company exist? I always say it's an easy question, but it's the hardest. Um, The other way to frame it is what is the reason for participating in the independent agency channel?
Vertafore has a long history in the independent channel, starting out just over 50 years ago. The focus was to help agents record policy information, right, through I think this was even pre-agency management system. And as technology has blossomed over the last 50 years, especially in the last 5 to 6, uh, Vertafore has collected a lot of tech solutions. We know that on average, this was a study done by Catalyst, which is an organization, a nonprofit that was started by the association world. They did a study in 2022 and showed that on average, agencies had 6 different pieces of technology, insure tech, right? Not and
Mm-hmm.
VoIP was included in that. There are some that were a little bit outside insure tech, but as close to vertical specific solution as possible. Um, they did the same study in 2023. That number went from 6 to 8. So we know that
Oh wow.
agencies are in this process of adopting and building out tech stacks. And so, why
Mm-hmm.
does Vertafore exist? It's really to help the independent agent leverage technology in a competitive manner. We have to be
Yeah.
able to scale to a certain level in order to compete against the big guys, right? And I'm not talking about large agencies. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about even Geico and State
Mm-hmm.
Farm and these massive companies that can can personalize scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the tension we have to sit in now, and technology can help us get there, right, as a small
Yeah.
business. And I would say, just a huge kudos to the way the strategy behind HawkSoft's approach. you guys have tackled this challenge in the industry with helping an agency embrace all this technology in such an open way. Even the fact that you're starting this podcast with the story of, the partner and the why, it's a testament to, I think, your mission as a company, and not just the fact
Hmm.
that you sell product. You really bleed your why. And I have so much respect for the HawkSoft team because of that.
I really appreciate that. Um, and I think that I cut this line from the introduction because I didn't know how others would take it internally, but um, the announcement of your you joining Vertafore was equally exciting as it was slightly terrifying to myself, because, and I mean this with all the respect, you're a force, and Vertafore is, objectively a competitor, but also in this industry we don't really have competitors. We have peers and colleagues, and there is there's enough to go around, because if we spend a lot of time infighting, then we are ignoring the fact that the Geicos out there can let us fight this battle and clean up afterwards. But I think in a coalition approach, which is usually how I approach it and explain it, I think that is our secret to success and our secret to independent agents being a viable channel and continuing to be resilient to market changes. I want to roll back slightly to that point you made about scaling, um, personalization. And I just wanted to explain that a bit more for the listener. We soak in technology, and like we're these terms are easy for us to parse. Scaling in the sense of they can grow pretty large, pretty aggressively, and continue to make it feel like it's a one-on-one relationship. The other piece that I wanted to bring up is, could you talk a little bit about AgencyZoom joining Vertafore in, I believe, 2021? That predates you slightly at Vertafore, but um, I'll be happy to contribute my own perspective as the HawkSoft side of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. So to start personalized scale, I'll bring it down to a nuts and bolts level. So if you just think about the idea of automation itself, it seems very cold, very impersonalized, right? I mean, my dad, for example,
Mm-hmm.
when I tried to get him to initially get AgencyZoom, his response was, "No, no, I don't harass my clients with emails," right? And I said, "Well, Dad, hold on a sec. That's not the purpose of it. That's how you use the tool, but that's not necessarily how it's meant to be
Mm-hmm.
used, right?" The agencies that I see get the highest engagement out of AgencyZoom are looking for are crafting the automation around the right time to send an email. So that could be an element of personalization, right? It could be the content that's inside the email, but we're scaling that. We're allowing it's not a manual process anymore. We're personalizing and we're allowing the second brain. That's what AgencyZoom is, the second brain, the fourth set of third and fourth set of hands to handle that. It could also be, personalization at scale. Another example could also be leveraging insights. So right now, if you ask any account manager that's in an agency across the country and say, well, how do you know which renewals? They say, oh, well, I like this person, or I just go down the list A to Z, or I pull it 30 to 60 days beforehand. Well, why don't we use the data that's in our systems to understand who is most likely to leave? Because maybe they had a tough experience, maybe we see that they're shopping on another site, and we're going to leverage that information to make a decision to to build a better relationship with them and work their renewal in that moment, right? So that could be personalization at scale. It's focusing our resources on the most impactful decisions at hand. So those are just some ways that I think we can leverage tech, and it's sort of a second brain and third and fourth set of hands in a world where um, uh, we have to be able to make quick decisions and still uh, you know move things forward at a fast pace. Okay, so that's personalized scale. AgencyZoom. When AgencyZoom was, first of all, AgencyZoom was around for 6 years before it was acquired by Vertafore.
Hmm.
And, they were at this really interesting moment in time that all insurtech startups come to, where you really have to decide whether you want to go big or whether you're going to
Hmm.
sell. There's a
Yeah.
peak that you hit. Tarmika hit it as well. I remember talking to Raghav, and he said, I think I just need to go like camp in the woods for 40 days and 40 nights to figure out which decision I'm going to make. And Mo, the same thing. So, and it's just, I, having been in the startup world, it is at a certain point, like, you're putting your life on the line, right, for a company if you decide to go
Hmm.
big. Now, what's interesting is you find out where the insurtech startup founders why is as you watch them post decision, right? So it was
Absolutely.
interesting to see that Mo, when he decided to come be a part of the Vertafore family, he's still with the company years later, right?
Hmm.
And that's a testament to the fact that I truly think he believes deep down at 2 a.m. when he's staring at the ceiling fan and nobody's here and he's not on a podcast and he's just talking to God, right?
Yeah.
I truly think he believes that Vertafore was the best choice to move AgencyZoom forward. That's where he could get the resources to move the
Yeah.
company. That's where the stability would be to move the vision that he had forward. And what he's been able to do with the product is, move it from uh, really a tool that was meant for personal lines agencies and some small commercial to a tool that any agency can adopt, to a tool that has a
Hmm.
robust sales center, but also now a service center that helps streamline service operations. And his new AgencyZoom enterprise effort, which is essentially a product for networks and associations to collect or aggregate
Hmm.
at a high level all the data of their member agencies, and give them a view into what's working and what's not working, and be able to help their member agencies in a more productive, impactful way. So it's it's really impressive. I think I I have a lot of respect for insurtech startup founders. To anybody who's listening to this podcast,
Hmm.
you all are rock stars. The decisions you have to deal with on a daily basis, the way the industry tests you, and I have a lot of respect for Mo and his team and what he's done. So
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree with that. I often point to how Mo Latif and the team at AgencyZoom navigated the acquisition. He called me the morning before the press release went live. He had a very direct, transparent conversation with me and HawkSoft about what was going on. He had resources prepared for all of the partners, saying, "This is what's happening. This is why we made the decision. This is how it will and won't impact partner relationships." Honestly, a master class in acquisitions and mergers. Um, and they have stayed, Brad and I were talking off camera before it started, they have stayed rather consistent in that. I still have a great working relationship with Xiaobin, one of AgencyZoom's key developers, and Sean, one of the product owners. We Our teams communicate every week because we have a lot of mutual customers and a lot of exciting stuff in the works. We've touched on a lot of the value propositions at a high level that AgencyZoom brings to an agency. And kind of what we explain, HawkSoft operates in the management system world. There are several management systems out there. Some are orange, some are blue, some are lighter blue. At HawkSoft, we always say, like, every management system has to have the same 80% feature coverage. You have to. It's like table stakes for executing on the business we're in. Where you really start to differentiate yourself is in the 20%, like unique features, unique approaches to business. AgencyZoom sits in this complex, somewhat crowded CRM marketing sales space that there are a lot of options. There's a lot of options inside insurance, specific as a vertical, outside in general. So this is our second question. If you had to pick one aspect of AgencyZoom that draws in and keeps customers, what would that be?
That might be those might be two different things. So can I? I'll answer. I'll answer as I kind of see the ecosystem here. Brad, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what draws in customers, obviously, it solves a solution.
Yeah.
You alluded to that earlier. That's what it did for me, and we'll get into that more later. But what I was looking for to start out was a sales pipeline, so we started there, and then evolved as Agency Zoom evolved into a customer relationship manager, which it enabled me to better communicate and establish a process and an automation of communicating with my customers. So it's just made us a lot more efficient.
Yeah, I guess where I was gonna go with the draws in piece, as a marketer, I have to think about what's catching people's eye in the moment, and right
Mm,
now it's AI, ChatGPT.
mm,
So I think what's been drawing people to Agency Zoom recently has been the work around integrating more AI into the tool. So that's from looking at how we smart search is something that's launching here pretty soon. So that's uh, basically a unified search that allows somebody to look up multiple types of files and pieces of information in a more intelligent fashion. Um, it's a souped up version of a search bar essentially. We
Mm.
also have Smart CRM, which is something that the development team is working on very diligently right now. That's coming towards the end of the year, beginning of 2025. So that's uh, looking at integrating more chat gpt like functionality into the system to help create email copy, to help even create automation and some pipelines. So I think that those are things that are kind of catching people's attention right now because, as you said, Kenny,
mhm.
this is sort of a congested space right now.
Yeah.
The Beatomic has a great solution in terms of the CRM. Obviously you can go just strict Salesforce, HubSpot, Better Agency. We now have Iris in the mix. And so, how does Agency Zoom stand out in the noise has been the question that we've been trying to tackle. Um, I think to Brad's point,
Mm,
from a nuts and bolts level, the sales automation and sales pipeline are fundamentally why people initially embrace and kind of where they start. But there's a lot of room to grow in the system as well with the service center, and really setting up more service, automation. Um, Even little things like I heard a story from an agency a few days ago about how they were getting all these phone calls from to their service team, and then their service team sits on the phone for 15-30 minutes because they don't want to be rude to the customer, right? Ask how their day is, how are things going, how are the
mhm,
kids. Well, that takes up a lot of time in their day to do other things like work a renewal, you know uh, or other tasks they might have. So, you know how do we keep them off the phone is the question. And one of the types of phone calls they were getting was, hey, where's the policy change at? Hey, are you going to send that certificate?
mhm.
It's just checking up on things that they already asked for. And so that service center automation can actually help keep the customer informed, like a Domino's pizza tracker. Your pizza's out of the oven, the pepperoni's on, the driver's 5 minutes away. Do not worry about it. We've got you covered, right? So those are some little ways that we're seeing agencies just expand within the system, and I think why they stay.
Does that square with your experience, Brad?
Yeah, yeah, and I think you see the continued evolution of the platform of the product. Things are being worked on. You can see what the roadmap suggestions are, and you see the advancement of the company, which has been like that since I was first took on Agency Zoom end of 2018, and you've been able to see the progress, the steady um, improvements since that time. So it's an encouraging to be with such a strong piece of tech.
Absolutely. Um, This is always the hard pivot in the middle to a complicated question. And I'm going to draw a box around this because I want to make sure that I don't have to watch my back for salespeople after this. So I'm gonna focus this question on Agency Zoom. Data ownership is a very important aspect of HawkSoft's advocacy for independent agents, and one of the reasons why a lot of people come to us. And so I would love to know, how does Agency Zoom specifically approach data ownership with regards to their customers?
Let's define data ownership. My definition of data ownership is you need to be able to have access to your data and be able to, request all of it or any part of it at any given
Hmm.
moment from your provider, right?
Hmm.
You should also be able to delete all of it. You should be able to modify it, truly, uh, not to restate the term, but own your relationship with that asset, right?
Mm,
Hmm.
So
well
in
said.
that respect, there's a couple ways that we help ensure that there's true data ownership with Agency Zoom. One is you have, obviously with a lot of different software, you have the ability to go in, you can delete at a at a individual level different fields, you can make modifications, you can also erase the data if you need to. um, I think the big question most people have is, well, what if I want to get the data out of the system so I have the asset, like pulling jet fuel out of a jet? I want the fuel, it's
Hmm.
worth something, but I can sell the jet, right? I don't need the software anymore. So I
Hmm.
want to disentangle these two things. Um, you can do that in a couple ways. One, you can request the data from us and we can send it to you in a file.
Mm.
Some people request it by mail. We also have publicly available APIs. So if you want to keep the data in the system and move it around, or if you wanted to pull it out through the APIs and then erase it in the system, those are, we can send you the documentation and you're welcome to use it however you'd like. The depth of APIs for Agency Zoom continues to grow. So, this is not the world of agency management systems that a lot of people are familiar with, where the tech is kind of old and legacy and it's hard to get data in and out.
Hmm.
Agency Zoom's 8 years old now, so it's relatively new, easy to get things in and out. And then we also, have pre-built integrations. So we've integrated with Zapier to make it easy, so you don't have to hire a developer if you want to integrate with Outlook or Gmail or another system that's not HawkSoft or Vertafore specific. Um, and
Hmm.
then of course we build out those integrations and maintain them with key insurance partners as well. So with HawkSoft, uh,
Hmm.
gosh, there's probably 40 different integrations we have pre-built with Agency Zoom. So you can go on the website and look. But Brad, you look like you were gonna
Yeah.
caveat that in some way.
No, no, continue. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that, to us, that ability to modify the data, erase the data, get the data out, extract it, and then move it how you choose, I think really encapsulates true data ownership.
I don't know that that was always the case. Do you know if that was, Sid, where we were able to extract the data from Agency Zoom? I
It
Because I remember asking Mo that question when I signed up with him, and he was like, "Well, you can just never leave, and then you won't have a problem." And I think
That's such a Mo
I liked him enough that
response.
I just accepted it and moved on. So that is the case that we can extract data. Okay.
Yeah, you can. And one of the things that I've been humbled by in the technology world, because I was a emblazoned fire starter when it came to data ownership 4 years ago. I thought there was no good reason in the world why any company or technology, or software could ever not just give someone the data easily. What I've realized in the world of technology is there is an element of tech debt, which means, these systems are, it's like the Amazon jungle in a lot of ways. They're, some of them are
Hmm.
decades old, and to get access through the, I mean, think about trying to blaze a path through the Amazon jungle, right? Much harder to walk in the jungle than it is down the street
Hmm.
of New York City. Although I could maybe New York City is not the best example there, right? Tampa, Tampa, Florida, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so there is an element of that, and I would say, Brad, it may have been, uh, the other part of this too is if a technology is new, they may just not have built out the ability to export. That's just a
Yeah.
feature you have to also build out.
Yeah.
So it could have been that as well back in the early days of Agency Zoom. But Agency Zoom's kind of
Yeah.
in this perfect spot where it's built it out and it also doesn't have that tech debt, so it's easier to get the data.
Hmm.
It's easier to access it, easier to get it in and out.
Yeah. I sincerely appreciate this conversation because I think it is one of those things that um, it takes active work and active advocacy because I completely agree with you said, um, and Brad, when you mentioned that when you first asked Mo if you could get the data out, Mo was probably in the back of his head being like designing the system to do it, but he's like, okay, I need time, so just don't go anywhere. And it is one of those things where it's like the tooling to get data out of a system generally isn't built at the same time as the storage of it. So I could probably, from my own experience inside HawkSoft, corroborate that type of situation. This podcast is a dialogue. It's not just me gushing about how much I like the guests. And we view it as like this two-way street. And I love when we have technology partner guests who have the full spectrum of experience in the industry, because this is my favorite question to ask. Sid, I would love to know for you, what is the hardest part of working with insurance agents?
The toughest part is, I think some of the beliefs, right, that agencies hold are sometimes
Mm,
tough to navigate, right? It's almost
mm,
like, think things start as like an idea or a concept, and then over time they become these like hardened beliefs, uh, that
mhm,
people hold, and agencies hold them just as much as any other person. And I guess I'm talking specifically in the realm of change management. I mean, and again, you have to take this question, know who you're asking the question to, right? I'm a big believer
yeah.
in,
Yeah.
like, we should always be growing. If you're not growing and changing, you're dying. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
think
Mhm,
that way. They get into maintenance mode and they coast, and that is great for them and it works for them. And I am not that person. And so I think the challenge is, when I meet like minded agencies who have that same just drive to hack their way through the Amazon jungle, it's like meeting my soul sister or brother. And I think there's a struggle that I have when I meet agencies that have kind of, you know put things on the back burner, because
mhm,
at the end of the day, we're a we're a big small industry. And
mhm,
what I mean by that is there's a good chunk of us, right? We're not going anywhere. But every single one of us has to pick up and fight at the end of the day and
mhm,
challenge other models and show that we are capable of growing and winning and competing in order for this model to be around for another 400 years. And
mhm,
that's just, core to my being. Like, I wake up every day, and those are some of the things I think about is second generation, or I guess I'm third
yeah.
generation. My grandfather started it, dad took it over, my brother's now taking it over. What can we get? Another 3 generations? Can we get 6 generations? Like, how far out can we push this
Mhm,
this model? And can we grow it? I mean, I we have 40,000 agencies alive today. Why is it not 80,000? Why is it not 100,000?
mm,
Right? um, those are the things that juice me up. So that's probably the toughest part for me
yeah.
is the maintenance mode.
Well, you probably see such a wide range of agencies, with what you do, maybe that are testing out, the agency Zoom product. You have those, that you used to. They're innovative, they're driven, that um, are just want to get better every day. And then to your point, then there's some that are um, well, just they're just nesting,
Hmm.
and maybe they took out this product and it's not doing what I thought it would do. Well, it doesn't, you know, the agency Zoom doesn't come out of the box, with all these features. You have to put a little time into it. And so you probably get a lot of pushback from those that don't want to do the work necessarily to get better. I could see that would be a big challenge for somebody
Yeah,
on the same with the AMS side of things and the any type of tech.
I was thinking about this recently, so it's funny you bring this up. S Okay, same catalyst study that I referenced before. Interestingly, they asked there were five big challenges or issue areas with technology, and the highest scoring challenge area was maximizing technology. Over 60% of agents
Mm,
said the toughest challenge for me with technology is maximizing it. And
mm,
part of that responsibility is on the software to be easy to use
mm-hmm,
and to provide the resources for our clients to be able to understand it and to truly maximize it and leverage it. Absolutely, I am not in any way, shape, or form offsetting that responsibility. We buy the license and then we think, great, we have the tech, someone is going to figure out how to use it. And what we don't realize is no, there's implementation costs to this tech. You may have to hire an expert, whether that's outsourcing, someone to come in to truly get it up to speed and work with your model, or hire someone internally. There's ongoing costs, right? And so that's all a part of the tech investment that I think people miss, and why we see rates like 60% of people think they're not maximizing their tech, when it comes to
Hmm.
the
yeah,
insurance industry. So, yeah, you nailed it,
Yeah.
Brad. I wholeheartedly agree with you.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, Fantastic answer. One of the best engagements on that question that we've been able to get on this podcast so far. So I really appreciate you guys leaning into that. We like to end our questions on the upswing, and I always, in any type of interview, any type of discussion, start with the more negative aspect. What is hard working with insurance agents? End with the positive aspect. Sid, in your experience, what is the best part of working with insurance agencies and agents?
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the upswing. I mean, personally for me, it's in my blood. Like I just had breakfast with actually another insure tech, uh, the chief product officer for another insure tech company, and I was just thinking on the way back how many amazing people I have met in this industry. Knowing Brad, knowing you, Kenny, knowing this lady. I mean, last week I was in New York and got to talk to. I sat next to a guy whose son had gone off to become a data analyst at GE and then decided to come back into the agency. And we were just going back and forth over the most terrible chicken in the world about, data cleanliness and management in the agency. And it's just like that kind of stuff gets me really, really excited. I feel like I've spent enough time that I've built these really beautiful relationships, and that there's this idea of like compound interest. I have this feeling like over the
hmm
next 10 years, first 10 years was building the relationship, and this next 10 years is going to
hmm
be maximizing those relationships and getting closer with people and doing more things with them and really challenging the status quo, not so much as a lone wolf, but in just with a little bit more of a wolf pack, I guess. So i'm
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be in the industry, and it's a fun time with AI and all the investments that are still rolling in, and so we'll see where things go.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. I think it's a perfect little question to end on. We like to bridge part one and part two by talking about how our systems work together, especially for API partners. Agency Zoom was one of our earliest API partners, embracing our partner API, and they have been one of the most proactive partners in embracing all of the new functionality that we add. Agency Zoom is a two-way API partner with HawkSoft. That means that they can read client and policy data out of our system to power the workflows and the sales pipelines and all that exciting, all the exciting features and value propositions that we've discussed so far. And then on the flip side, AgencyZoom is able to write back to HawkSoft documentation. HawkSoft agencies listening, AgencyZoom can write a log note. They can write a log note that comes with a task. So if something needs to be done, AgencyZoom can alert a user inside HawkSoft that it needs to be done. And they can also put attachments in the system. Anything, Brad, you would want to add as a user, or Sid from the inside perspective on how AgencyZoom and HawkSoft work together?
A few years ago, I think it would have been fair to say the integration between AgencyZoom and HawkSoft was better than any other AMS integration that we have had, and that's a testament to, again, the open approach that the HawkSoft leadership team has pioneered. And there's a lot of talk about openness in the industry, and you guys put your money where your mouth is. The amount of data that was passing back and forth, the speed at which it was passing back and forth, and the stability with which it was passing back and forth was really unrivaled. Now, today I think we're pretty equal with a lot of other management systems, but we continue to work with the HawkSoft team, and as fast as they open up endpoints, I know our team works to integrate. And I would say, in a lot of other relationships, it's vice versa. So we have the endpoint and we wait for them to open things up, and with you guys it's really the other way around, where you're moving at a very breakneck speed. So just kudos to the HawkSoft team. We love working with you guys, and to any users on AgencyZoom and HawkSoft, we appreciate you a lot. And of course, any feedback you can give us about the integration, we're always happy to hear. So
I think we're going to stop there on part 1, and we're going to bring you both back for part 2 next week. I want to thank you both for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to the listeners for tuning into today's podcast. For the best way to contact today's guests and listen to their own podcasts, click the episode description or episode notes if you're on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you listening and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives Podcast, Part 2 on AgencyZoom. Thank you for watching today's episode. Click the video description below to learn more about our guests and to view the latest podcast episode as well as other content from HawkSoft. We appreciate you watching and hope you join us next time on the Insurance Perspectives Podcast. Thank you.